Gwych. So yeah, good afternoon all. Thank you for coming on this afternoon. I know it's the last week before the Christmas holidays, but yeah, thank you for being able to attend this afternoon. Firstly, I'd just like to introduce and welcome Bryony Evett-Hackfort. Bryony is a lecturer, or works in Coleg Sygar, Coleg Ceredigion, and she's going to facilitate this workshop today, looking at the use of AI, the ethical use and the effective use of AI in the college, and the work that Bryony's been doing in pushing and promoting the use of AI within the college. Like I said, like I mentioned before we started recording, if there are any questions during the session, I know Bryony is would be very keen to answer your questions in English or Welsh. Then please do raise your hand or pop a question into the chat, and we'll get on and we'll try to answer those questions as soon as possible. So before I pass over to Bryony, I just wanted to quickly share just a quick introduction for myself. I know that some of you on the call this afternoon, you attended the first session, so thank you for coming back. That's a testament maybe of your commitment, and hopefully, and obviously I didn't bore you to death in the first session, so thank you for coming on board, coming back this afternoon. So this network, for any of you that are new to this sessions today or these workshops, so as part of e-sgol's commitment to provide professional learning opportunities and support to schools and teachers that are delivering a hybrid or online courses, we've set up a hybrid learning teaching network, a teacher network, where we'll be hosting a number of workshops, exploring different avenues, different themes, topics that relate to online and hybrid learning courses, and hopefully an opportunity for you to learn from different practitioners, different schools, different organizations, and you can cherry pick, maybe magpie some ideas and use them within your organizations and within your classes. The strapline or the key principles of the actual network is an opportunity for us to collaborate as a group, to be innovative, so to innovate and to try to trial things within our hybrid learning online courses and lessons, and also be a place where we can support each other. So those are the three headings or themes that we'll try to instill into this teaching network. For those of you that are new to the call this afternoon, we have set up a teacher network, so a Microsoft Teams that's been created specifically for this network. So I know some of you in the call this afternoon and maybe rewatching the recording are members of this group. However, if you want to join this teacher network, where we will be using it to share information, maybe if I read through some articles or watch clips that relate into online and hybrid learning, then I will add it to the teacher network. So the QR code is there if you do want to scan it to join the teacher network. But I'll also add the link to join the team then within the chat, and you'll be able to join it after the call if you choose to go down that avenue. So in terms of the workshops, like I mentioned, so during the year we're going to be hosting jumping ahead of myself there, we're going to be hosting 6 workshops. Like I mentioned, exploring different themes and topics that relate to being collaborative, being innovative, and being supportive towards each other. Our first one was held in November, where we just introduced ourselves and just introduced the network itself. Today we've got Bryony, like I mentioned, and I won't butcher her work now. I'll let Bryony carry on with her presentation in a moment. Then after the new year, we have got Stephen Graham. So he's the head of e-sgol. So our counterparts up in Scotland who do similar hybrid learning online courses to us up in Scotland. So that he's going to share how they deliver online provisioning up in Scotland, and also highlight they've recently created a hybrid learning checklist for their teachers. So again, he's going to share that, and again, that's something that you could maybe use when you're planning and delivering your hybrid online courses. Following that, then we've got a group of universities, so the WCLD. So they are a group of universities in Wales who look at hybrid learning. So they do look at hybrid learning strategies, and they have research-led strategies when it comes to hybrid learning, and they've also got some case studies that they're going to share with us. And then the final session, then we're going to have just a sharing, show and tell session where I'm going to ask certain individuals, certain teachers across Wales to share some golden nuggets, things that they do to try to deliver when they deliver in their hybrid learning courses. However, today then I'm going to pass it on to Bryony in a moment. But so Bryony's going to look at and discuss how Coleg Cigar, Coleg Ceredigion utilize and use AI within their organisation, within the college, and using the strapline or the title "Think Smart, Learn Smart," and specifically looking at the assessment side of it as well. Then, so on that point there, then I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to pass you over to Bryony. So diolch yn fawr, Bryony, first of all, for coming on board this afternoon.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me. It's really lovely to be here with you all. We actually only have a relatively short amount of time, so if anybody wants any follow-up conversation or opportunities to share a little bit more in another time, perhaps after Christmas, just email me. I'm very happy, Stephen, for you to share my email if you haven't done so already, if anyone wants to reach out. So I always start when I share the work that we've done in AI. So I'm from Coleg Cigar, Coleg Ceredigion, and I'm the Director of Teaching, Learning and Education. So cover quite a few areas within my remit, one of which is digital pedagogy. So that brings me to the AI space. But I always like to say at the beginning of this work that I'm not techie. I didn't start techie. I'm not techie trained or anything like that. This has very much been a learning journey over the last couple of years since ChatGPT sort of hit the mainstream. And we're not experts, but we're really happy to share our story and to share our journey and where we're at now, to share the bits where maybe we got it a little bit wrong, but also the bits where we are feeling like we're going in the right direction. And I think as a college, we're at a point now where we're feeling really happy with where we're at and where we're going. So it's just a lovely opportunity to be able to share that with you. And as I say, very happy to take questions, either in the session or afterwards. One of the things I wanted to just start is to put us as a little bit of context, really, in terms of our approach to AI. And I'm never really ashamed to say that we got it wrong at first. And what I mean by that is that when ChatGPT hit the headlines, we just became magpies. We got really excited, overexcited, loved all the tools, started throwing things out, showing teachers all the different things that they could do with it, left, right and centre. And within, 6 weeks to 2 months, we'd completely overwhelmed ourselves as a college, and nobody was AIing by that point. We just were completely overwhelmed. So I made the decision at that point to just stop and take stock and to actually really spend time thinking about what are our values around AI as an organisation. That's where we started. So we didn't start with the tech. And actually, often in these discussions, I talk very little about the technology, because for me, it's about the people and it's about the values that sit behind the work and the decisions that you do. So this kind of sums up for us what those values were. In the early days, everybody was talking ethics. Absolutely right, completely support that, 100%. But the problem I saw was that if we only talked about ethics, you will not be brave enough to innovate. And if you only talk about innovation and all the exciting things you can do, you will cross ethical boundaries that are not acceptable. So for us as an organisation, we have put equal weighting on these 4 elements of ethics, safety, innovation and efficiency. And we work with those as a benchmark to make decisions about the things that come through, new ideas, new programs, new software, new concepts. We use those 4 pillars to kind of assess whether it fits with our values or it doesn't. And we've used these 4 values for everything. So all of our learner facing activity in this space and all of our staff activity, because we're really passionate about culture, taking everybody with us, both those in teaching roles, but also those in support roles as well. So I think one of the key things is to really think about your value around what your standpoint is on AI and how you see it being embedded into your organisation. The other thing we talked about very early on, and again, you'll see underpins everything that we do, is that there was a lot in those early days, I think, of a bit of fear-mongering, not afraid to say, a lot of people using very technical vocabulary to over-technify AI. There was a lot of big terms that were being bounced around. And the reality is, for us as an organisation, our standpoint is you just talk to it. You learn how to talk to it. And you underpin it with ethics, safety, innovation and efficiency, and then you learn to talk to it. So those are the philosophies that guide the work that we've been doing. Specifically, though, this afternoon, I'm talking to you about our AI assessment scale and just what we call about our sort of accountability process. We were in a situation, as were many, many other organisations, where malpractice was increasing around assessment and the use of AI in assessment. And the problem was those conversations with learners were really challenging because there was no kind of accountability process that sat behind it. There was no transparency of rules. There was no kind of sort of clear guidance or understanding between tutor and student about where AI featured or didn't feature in any particular piece of assessment work that was happening. Now, for us in FE, we are in a little bit of a situation where there is a challenge with our awarding bodies. There is a little bit of a disconnect in between their sort of guidance and what they say versus the reality of how AI is working within the college infrastructure. I'm really lucky, actually. I managed to go up and meet with Pearson's week before last, and they were really open and positive to a really good conversation around joining up the realities of what's happening to make sure that that guidance is actually reflective of what it's like in the classroom. So we are built for our learners. We've got a whole staff programme as well, but we don't have enough time to go through that today. So I am just focusing on the learner one. But if you'd like to talk about the programmes we've written for staff, I'd be very happy to chat about those at another time as well. But essentially, we have built everything that we do on the Think Smart, Learn Smart around Leon Fers's AI assessment scale. Now, I'm sure you are probably all familiar with him. If you aren't, he is a very, very generous and genuine and lovely practitioner, currently residing in Australia. So pinning him down for a meeting is sometimes a little bit challenging. But essentially, when lots of people were trying to sell AI back to us, Leon was out there giving his thinking and sharing his thinking. And he generated an AI assessment scale, which he very generously said to people, look, take it, adjust it, use it, make it your own, and make it work for you. So we really liked that philosophy. It sat with our values. And so that's what we did. And we did a very small pilot with a couple of areas within our institution before we rolled it out en masse, which we've now done since September. And this is the process that we've built around that, essentially. So one of the sort of the most complicated areas around AI is the use of consent. And we spent a lot of time thinking about what are we actually getting consent for, and what is the purpose of the consent? And this has evolved over the year. But essentially where we're at now with consent is that our learners consent to learn about AI. We are the education sector. We are the learning part of the AI journey. And I think that's getting a little bit forgotten in some conversations. We have to be the safe space, the place where learners can come and try and perhaps get it wrong and then be supported and educated to get it right. And I think sometimes some of the consents that have been taken work against that philosophy. You know, I don't expect my learners to come in necessarily and know the exact ins and outs of how to ethically use AI. I see it as our role in the context of educators to support them to do that. So they sign a consent to say that they will engage with us to learn about AI. And they also sign a consent, which is to say that they recognise that their tutors might use it as part of the curriculum to enhance teaching and learning. And that is in there because it's two-way. We talk a lot about what students can and can't do with AI, but that has to be two-way. That has to apply to tutors as well. That's really important. So it also covers us for future innovation as new ideas and tools are released. Having that consent allows us to confidently explore those. But one of the things I would recommend as well around AI is be really clear about what you're not interested in as an organisation. So for us right now, we are not interested in marking in AI. There's a lot of places that are exploring that. And from a value standpoint, we're not. It's a decision that we've made. And we often in our college make decisions that maybe go against the grain. And I think that's maybe one of them. But for us, that moment of when a teacher is providing feedback to a learner is so important that of all the functions around a teaching and learning experience, that's not the bit I want to focus on for AI. I think there's other bits that that lend themselves better to it. So for right now, we're protected around that. It doesn't mean we won't change in the future, but for right now, that's where we're at. So they come in and they sign their consent through enrolment in August, and then we are now implementing the AI assessment scale. So I just wanted to show that to you so you can have a little look to see what it looks like. I've got so many tabs open. Hang on, bear with me. So this is what our AI assessment scale looks like. It's really, really simple, and it is a little bit different to the one that Leon Furs put out originally, but it's all credit to him in terms of how it looks and what we're doing. The AI assessment scale is not about encouraging more use or encouraging less use. It's about being clear about what is the acceptable use, about staff using their professional judgment around what the exam board is saying, what is actually being assessed in any given assessment, and then setting the scale accordingly. So it's really nice and simple. And that was important to us because obviously, like yourselves, you've got learners from right across a different sort of differentiated range, and it is important that it's accessible and simple. So all of our staff now pick this up and they put it onto all of their assignments, regardless of whether it's no AI right up to full AI. And we're doing a lot of work on supporting staff to understand what the assessment need is or the assessment outcome is for any given assignment. So coming back to us being a learning organisation, and we're being the educators on this process. So we've designed an e-learning package that all of our learners undertake in September. So we're currently at 1,700 learners that have done it so far this year. And that is a interactive, active, practical modules around how to use the scale. I hope I'm okay time-wise, Stephen. Can I still show the video? I'm just conscious of our finish. I'm gonna
of course, yeah.
Is that all right? Amazing.
Yeah.
So this actually gives you a really lovely feel of the e-learning modules that we've designed. It gives you a feel of the language that we're using, which hopefully you can see is a little bit different to some of that kind of more intimidating, scary language around AI. And it gives you a little insight into what our learners are doing. I'll stop it at that point. So one of the things that's really key with this whole program is then we've got the 5 individual modules that they take after this. And it is very much not just about AI use or not using AI, but getting them to think about other ways of learning, you know, that gets them to engage with the learning process and not just to rely on AI. And we found that this has been so beneficial having our learners do this. And I'll show you a little bit of data to give you a little bit of an insight into that. So all of the learners undertake the package during September. It is available in Welsh and English. And then the next step then is, so whenever through the academic year they get an assignment, it will always have that scale. So that will become a familiar part, just as important as deadlines, just as important as outcomes. That too will be on there. The learners then go away and do their assignments. And then when it comes to submitting, they then sign a declaration to say that they have adhered to the assessment scale. So again, all of our tutors pick this up and pop this onto their own paperwork. What we've tried to do with this accountability process is just control what we can control locally. Obviously, there's so many things that are still being explored, being decided, guidance and, you know, and governance coming from Welsh Government or all different locations. So this is what we feel we can do locally to manage AI within our organisation. And then the last thing I wanted to show you really is just the data snapshot. So this is what we've had back, and this was captured in November. So a few more learners have done it by now. But I'm really pleased around the consents that are given. So where consent has not been given, we've allowed then a process where there's a follow-up conversation. And more often than not, what we're finding is when a learner is not giving consent, it's more just a misunderstanding, or it's sort of they have assumptions about AI. And one of the things I love more than anything within our college is that I'm really proud that the learners can love AI and they can hate AI. It doesn't matter, but you want them to have an opinion on it, and you want them to have an understanding of it and how it works and how it's going to impact them. This isn't about promoting more or less. It's just about being clear and allowing people to speak from an informed position. And the one that I'm really pleased about is that this bit of data in Insight 7 at the bottom is looking at the positive impact. Now, obviously, learners don't have to say positive things in surveys. They can say whatever they like. So to have such a positive reflection back on the modules in terms of learners feeling that this will impact positively in their use of AI, that they're feeling clear in terms of what the expectation is of them. And what you will see through our accountability process, that all the way through, there's an opportunity for a learner to go, I don't understand, I'm not sure. So that hopefully by the point you are getting to any malpractice, if that's what you're doing, you've got a whole process that you can take that learner back to and say to them, right, at this point, what could you have done differently? Again, thinking about us as the role of as educators. So that's just really to give you a little whistle-stop tour of the Think Smart, Learn Smart programme. As I say, we're not experts, but we really feel that this is giving us a really solid foundation to work forward with our learners. And as you can see, the feedback has been really, really positive from staff and learners right across our organisation. So yeah, happy to take any questions. Stop sharing and come back to you.
Great, thank you, Bryony. Sarah, straight in there. Question?
Yes. Thanks, Bryony. I'm very much like you. I get very excited about AI, and just looking at the first little video you did for your learners was fantastic, because I work in the local authority, so I oversee the secondary schools and AI, and the problems with AI in terms of assessment and how do teachers know if it's their own work is something that they spiraled out of control with, really.
Yeah, 100%.
So what we did is we did a policy and saying that, you know, we're not going to fight against AI because it's here, but our concern was, you know, we tell schools that you need to educate the learners in how to use AI correctly. And the schools all said, yeah, that's great. But I think the problem that we've got is that isn't happening in our schools.
Right.
probably because they don't know how to start to get the ball rolling. So when I saw that video, I was like, oh, that's a great little starter. But then you said there's another 5 modules behind that. So my question is, who created the modules? And is this something that other local authority or, you know, other institutions can access to support the work in our schools and colleges?
Yeah, so it's I made them. So all the learning content that's come from our college, I've made them. But I'd be willing outside of this room to have conversation to see if there's a way to explore taking that further, if that's something that you might be interested in as you know, as a county. That would be fab. You know, because that is the scary bit, isn't it? Is how do you start the conversation? And for us, we felt really, really passionately that if we don't start talking about it, it pushes it underground. And the moment it goes underground, it doesn't come back up again. So we jumped on that right at the beginning. We didn't want learners to feel that the only language around AI was plagiarism, cheating, disciplinaries,
Right,
you know,
exactly. Yes.
penalties and all those kinds of things, which, if we're honest, that's what it was. So
Yeah.
learners automatically were like, ugh, you know, and then the ones that were willing to push their luck a bit more were being discreet and, you know, secret squirrels. So starting that conversation, and I'd be really willing to have a conversation to see how we can work together to look at that.
Yeah, the other question I was going to ask, sorry if I don't know if anybody else is waiting, apologies, but in terms of, we know that they look at that AI assessment scale. Are you then relying on the honesty of that learner? Because they could go, right, yeah, okay, I'm only allowed to do editing. But what they've actually done is put in other AI stuff into their work. But as I'm fully aware, they can say to AI, write this answer in my language. I spell, for example, broccoli incorrectly all the time. So my teacher will know this is me if you do that. So how does your tutors, and I know it's probably an impossible question, know that that work is genuinely theirs?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, and I love it because there is no straight answer and there's not an easy answer, but there are answers. There are suggestions, shall we say, rather than answers. So one of the things that I love about AI is that we all know we're going to have to completely reform assessments. That goes without saying, but they're not at that point yet. So we can talk about that, but that's not what we've got in front of us. Your biggest approach to this is upskilling your staff. That's really important, because what you will find, and we found, is that the majority or a lot of staff are operating on assumptions. They're operating on what they think AI can and can't do. And I'm always really willing to share this story. Apologies, I'm going way over time here. If anyone has to go, please just leave. But we had a member of staff, right, who accused a learner of using ChatGPT in assignment, and it got pretty horrible. Got to parents complaining. You know, that's what it was. And when we dealt with all of that, and then we got to that member of staff, and I said, "So are you using ChatGPT yourself?" No, I don't use it. I was like, right, okay. So they had approached that learner and made that suggestion without any context for themselves and understanding of its functionality. So what I say to our staff is, regardless of your very personal standpoint about how it's going to feature in your classroom, as an educator, you are obligated to understand and engage and learn with it. And that's no different. Like, one of the things, I was on a call the other day with some people with Dysgu, and we were talking about, it's funny, isn't it? Because literacy, numeracy is everybody's business, right? That is everybody's. But for some reason, when we get to digital, there's still a little bit of an out where some people can go, oh, I'm not digital, so I don't really do that. Right. So I do think that sort of from a policy framework, we're going to have to look at how can we get digital onto that standpoint where there isn't an out, you know, and I see that in our organisation. Like, I know my digital staff and I know the ones that don't want to engage, but the reality is they don't have a choice anymore. And I do see it is getting better in terms of how it's embedded into, you know, into ITE and how it's embedded into like EWC and all those different things. But there's a lot more work to do, and AI fits into that. And there are isms in AI, you know, but ultimately the best thing about AI is you have to know your learners better. You have to. There's no workaround.
Yeah, and that's very true, because I'm from a teaching background, and I would know if one of my learners back in the day, before ChatGPT and Copilot, etc., would give me a piece of work and it'd be on a D, and all of a sudden it's come in an A, and their boyfriend, girlfriend is an AA star pupil, and what she's done is written it for him. You know, and you've sat them down and gone,
and you do know.
Yeah. But what we're finding is that it's really difficult now for some teachers to tell a difference. And
there are little quirks, like, for example, it loves the word align, and it loves little hyphens all the time. You'll always spot hyphens. Right, okay. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Right. But there are keywords, but there isn't a magic solution. I mean, I'm not pro detectors at all. They don't work. So we do need to find another workaround to that, because, you know, the detector answer is, well, it's not one, in my opinion. I don't think. I don't know if that helps a bit.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for that. I think before I move on to you, David, I think just like to add, I think there's an element, if you're being open and transparent from the start in September and really utilising and sharing those assessments or those narratives to them from the start, you build that element of trust then between the students, that relationship between the learners and the lecturers then. So I think there's some blind faith maybe also lying in the background there. David, teaching around?
Yes, diolch, Stephen. Bryony, very, very interesting sort of talk from you, and I just want to kind of I got two parts to this. First part is to give you a quick personal example to support what you're saying, and then the second part will be a question around staff. So first part, so I lecture at Welsh University in a particular topic. So I was leading a small team of assessors for endpoint assessment, which is inland, because they put their students through endpoint assessments for apprenticeships. Okay, so that's the context. So one of the assessors, I would probably say quite old school, okay, if I dare say that, and basically highlighted where the student had potentially been using AI to generate content, okay, for the assessment. Now, the particular university has a system called Turnitin. You may have heard of Turnitin. Turnitin currently, that I'm aware of, cannot detect AI. What I subsequently found out, through, long story short, with the discussion with the staff member, was that they had used ChatGPT detector via, you do a quick Google on ChatGPT detector. They'd used that, which was not a licensed product obviously to the university. And then basically what we had was a further investigation on the student in terms of malpractice, which was unfounded. A very unhappy, because I had to deal with the. It went to the data protection officer, and basically they said, well, actually, you're using an unlicensed product.
That you've put student work in.
Absolutely. So I'm just reinforcing what you've said about actually a member of staff actually using software that was unlicensed in order to try and detect ChatGPT. So
let me just come back on that very quickly, because one of the things I spoke to Pearson about before your question, I said to them, obviously I know with Pearson in their guidance, they don't say that a detector will be the end point, but it might be used in a process. And I said to Pearson, I said, the problem is you will have staff that will cling to that for dear life. They won't read the bit that's around it that says it's part of a process or it fits into a professional decision-making process. They will see that you've got the word detector written, might be used, and they'll go, see, they're doing it. And I said that to them. They're like, ah, okay, yeah. I'm like, you will have staff that hold on to it and don't come off. So yeah, it's problematic.
Sure. I'm sorry, just very quickly, we have a team, a tech team, you know, who are, and we're the university, very, very supportive of AI use and AI development. So we're not anti-AI, which is great.
Yeah.
So my kind of second question is, and from your video, it's probably been put across to me today, probably more simpler than perhaps the uni put it across when I had an input there. With regards to your staff, teaching staff, creating assessment rubrics, okay, and marking guides, are they themselves creating those marking guides and rubrics with that sort of guidance that you provided? Did they have to create the rubrics themselves with that?
Yeah, we're not
alongside that
doing anything
guidance?
in the marking space, so I'm really
Right.
I'm quite strict about it. Yeah, so at the moment, all of our work is not currently looking at utilizing AI to do any marking based activity. And that's just a value stand for us, is that we don't want to go, and you know, Dysgu are doing our pilots into that at the moment. You know, there's lots of areas exploring that, but I made the decision for us as an organization, we're not going there just yet.
Okay. But when the teacher or the learning team create the rubric,
yeah,
and within the assessment guide for the student, it's the teachers that are creating the assessment guide. So you're relying on them to say no AI or full AI or anything in between.
Yes. But the key piece is the specification that they're working to, you know, so that's why I'm saying there's things we can control locally, which is about being clear, but there's things we can't control, which is what the awarding bodies are pitching any given assignment at, you know. So if they say no AI across the board, well then the scale needs to be reflective of that, but we are being clearer to our learners. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, David. Thank you,
for
answering that. No, we're coming close to past now. Just unless somebody's got another question that they'd like to pose.
I'd like Bryony's email address in the chat, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah. What I'll also do is I will, following this recording, and I'll email obviously the recording and any associated resources then to the attendees, and with Bryony's email then, so you'll have that there. One thing, obviously, for me, just before we close, Bryony, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your your developments in Coleg Llyn, Coleg Ceredigion. I think it's very proactive in the way that you're approaching it, and putting the onus on the students to be as honest and being as transparent as possible, really, and educating them at the same time. I think that's very, very useful. I know you mentioned you're not going to talk about the teachers and maybe the strategies you have in place in that. Am I right in saying that you've got something similar when teachers plan their
so we've got an
an
e-learning package called Enhancement Not Replacement, again, which is values driven. So when we started developing that, the two things everybody was scared of was losing their job to AI and losing learning. So our philosophy stance is enhancement, not replacement. So I use that as a strategic decision-making tool. Everything that comes into my organization goes through, is it enhancing or is it replacing? If it's enhancing, fab, let's crack on. If it's replacing, nah, we're not interested. Might change in the future, but that's culturally is how I've got my teams on board. But the package, it's 4 modules, and each module does, so one does ethics, one does safety, one does innovation, and one does efficiency. Again, all designed by myself. That was my Christmas the year before last, because I'm really sad and need to get live. But essentially it's practical, so it's all prompts driven. So how I've built it, it doesn't matter what AI platform you're utilizing. You I've designed it so that you have starter prompts in the training package, and then you continue the discussion in your AI platform. So it kind of means then it's quite a personal learning journey, because it's based on how you develop that conversation with the AI platform. It's designed to help people find their way in. So, for example, right back at the beginning, I got really excited when I realized that you could turn images into, like, so historical people, bring them alive, that kind of thing. Absolutely loved that. Made loads of videos. Once I learned a little bit more about ethics, I stopped doing it. But at the beginning, that was my way in. I have Shakespeare, I have Amelia Earhart. They're all, I love them, but obviously I don't make them anymore now that I've learned. But that was my way in. So this program is designed to try and work with people to find their way in. And one of the things I say about the program, it's not designed for teachers, it's designed for people. So it's designed for everyone. So, for example, it's going to be delivered in the NHS after Christmas, in our local health board. So it's designed for people, not for a particular profession.
Great, that's fantastic. I think, and again, that's transparency. If you're doing something for your learners, then it's important you do it for your practitioners as well. And I think that cross
and the staff
is
need
important.
to come first. They're the vehicle. They need to come first. You know, so we worked only on our staff for 18 months before we even touched anything in the learner space. That was the order we did it in. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I think we'll close there then. So again, thank you so much, Bryony, for spending your time this afternoon. Really much appreciated. And just to finish off, one thing that I stumbled across today, or this week, was Hub have recently, Meda actually have recently been working with Dysgu. So they are the tertiary body that are supporting colleges across Wales and the UK, and they have created a unit, a module looking at the effective, safe and ethical use of AI. So there's a course available through Hub. It's available for schools across Wales to use, and it covers 3 key modules or themes. It's accessibility, integration and next steps. So again, just something that maybe relates to what Bryony was mentioning today. So I'll share that information to you, and again, you can share that within your schools, within your local authorities, as maybe a starting point if you as a school or local authority are looking to maybe develop and strengthen those AI processes within your school. So I'll share that with you. Like I mentioned, the recording and any associated material, resources will be shared with you with our email addresses. So if you've got any questions, then please do drop us an email. But for now, thank you so much for your time and enjoy the last week before Christmas arrives. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
See you now.
Bye-bye.